Hi, I'm Larry from Anew in Sparta, Wisconsin. We're in our show home where I'd like to talk with you a little bit about some of our accent wall options. The one I'm standing next to is what we call our brown and gray mix, and it is by far our most popular seller. We use vintage reclaimed wood. We have it all milled to precise dimensions, and we do something that we call skip planing, where we have the planer knives just hit and miss on the surface, leaving some of the original surface, but also exposing some of the really awesome rich patina of the actual vintage wood there as well. We have it all straight lined so that we have consistent widths, and we do 4 different widths, 2 1/4 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and 5 inch. And so this is all milled, precision milled, and we give it a tongue and groove so that it's really very easy to install. A lot of do-it-yourselfers use this. Contractors like it because it is not overly labor intensive to install this material. This is another accent wall product that we're making, and it's kind of fun and interesting how we're doing it. We're taking 2x4 wall studs and splitting them to make 1x4s, and then painting the surface, and then going back to that same skip planing technique that we talked about with the other accent wall material. But in this case, we're just removing some of the paint that we put on there. So we're attempting to achieve a vintage paint look, but we're using modern paint. And so we're using the rough surface of the vintage 2x4s, and we're also adding a bead in the middle. So each board has a bead that runs down the center and along the edges. They are also all tongue and groove boards. They're each about 3 inches wide, and so when they tap together, you get this interesting pattern. Here in the same room, we have a little bit more traditional looking type of beadboard. This is actually made in a similar way. We're taking those same 2x4s and we're splitting them again, but instead of using the rough surface, we're just taking all that surface off and going right down to the aged patina of the vintage boards, of the vintage wood. So we've got a lot of character in here. It's going to have nail holes, it's going to have small knots, it's going to have all sorts of things going on that you would not find in a more traditional beadboard. But you can install this anywhere. We've put it on the ceiling in this room. You could use it as a wainscot on a wall that you use a different type of accent material on, or even paint above it. Or you can do an entire accent wall with it, or do it like we did on the ceiling. This type of accent wall we call center cut. We're resawing vintage barn beams, maybe some of them that we get that aren't as nice on the exterior surface, so they don't have that pristine look we might want to use for a mantle or some other decorative piece, but they're solid wood and very cool aged patina on the inside of the beams. So we saw those beams into boards, and then we produce this mixed species center cut accent wall on it. This is also mixed width, so we have again 2 1/4 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and 5 inch boards. We backplane it all to exactly 1/2 inch thick, and it does have tongue and groove on again, so everything snaps together pretty easily. Now we're mixing up the species so that we get different colors, different patinas in the wood. You're going to find, probably some red oak, some white oak, some maple, possibly some poplar. Once in a while, even a piece of walnut, elm. All the different wood species that we might find in the woods around some of these vintage barns that we take down in the area. We think it makes a really beautiful wall. You're also going to see nail holes, again, evidence of former insect activity, all sorts of things going on. This looks really awesome. This one is kind of a playful version of an accent wall. In fact, a lot of our customers tend to use them in the kids' rooms or in playrooms because of the multi-colors. And often folks wonder how we find all these vintage colors in the homes that we deconstruct in order to put together an accent wall like this. Well, the secret is this is not vintage paint. We're using our reclaimed wood, which is vintage wood, and we're using new paint of different colors, painting the surface. And then do you remember when we talked about skip planing? That's what we're doing here again as well. So we're taking some of that painted surface back off to give it the vintage look, but it's not actually vintage paint. Now, we don't always have exactly the same colors in this mix. You can actually choose some colors for a larger project if you'd like to. In fact, we did one project for a customer that wanted an American flag on a very large wall. And we had them bring the red, white, and blue paints. And then we painted our vintage wood using their paint, and they assembled the flag on the wall, and it looks absolutely awesome. So we can do some custom colors, like this if you would like us to, and just mix it up a little bit for a very playful accent wall. We've done something a little different with the feature wall in this bedroom. This is actually vintage barn siding. That's one of the places that we get some of the widest vintage boards. And we like the inside surface of these boards. They were rough sawn, they had some really pretty staining, and a lot of really cool character. In some cases you can see circular saw marks where they were cut with the super big circular saw blades that they used to use back then. And they're just really a good look and a really cool, attractive surface. And so we use the inside, but in order to make them more user-friendly, we've done a couple additional things. We have straight line ripped the edges so that we get consistent widths, and we've also backplaned the weathered side off in order to get consistent thicknesses. Therefore, you can assemble this wall without having the traditional problems of multiple thicknesses and edges that don't meet. So this is a new product that we've been making, and would be happy to make some for you. We've actually left our show home and we're in the house next door. This is a remodel project that we're working on, and I just wanted to show you that there are some options with the various types of accent wall material that we make. This one, for example, we used about 50% each of our brown and gray mix, which you saw first, and another product that we can make, which is just a plain white skip planed version. So some folks also mix in a little bit of red. We have some red barn board that we skip plane and make into the same widths and the same thicknesses. All the tongues and grooves match up. So you can do something like this where there's a little bit of a mix and match of different colors. The most typical base is the brown and gray, which again is our most popular seller. And then folks can mix different percentages of other colors with that if they'd like to. For example, you might say, I'd like 50% of the brown and gray, 25% white, and 25% red. And we would be able to get you the material so that you can mix it up when you install it. We're in our warehouse now, and I just wanted to show you another option for an accent wall or various other things that you can do with this material. This is actually a sample wall we're getting ready for a trade show exhibit, and it's not quite done yet, but I can show you what it looks like, and you can take it from there. This is something we call naily wood. And we call it that because you can see all the tiny little nail holes all over in the wood. These were formerly roofing boards that had cedar shakes on. So there were lots of little shake nails, and then after that they quite often had asphalt shingles on, so there were more nail holes. And so it's just got a lot of little nail holes and lots of character. A lot of times the roofing boards were the last lumber that was sawn out when a building was built, and they used some of the leftover stuff that they didn't think was quite quality enough to use for flooring or for siding, so they put it on the roof because they were going to cover it up anyway. But for us, some of those materials that they thought was not the best for siding or flooring is actually the material that has a ton of character. And so we're making this an easier to use product as well. The roofing boards, typically when we take them off, are various thicknesses and various widths, and a lot of times the edges are really not very nice, and so it wouldn't be very nice to work with if we weren't doing some of the preliminary work to make it nicer to work with. So what we're doing, similar to that herringbone pattern wall that you saw a few minutes ago, we're straight line ripping the edges and we're back planing it. So now we have all the same thickness and we have uniform widths. In this case, the widths that we have available are 5-inch, 7-inch, 9-inch, and some 11-inch. And we also make a 4-inch naily wood trim that a lot of folks use when they do our other accent wall materials to frame things out, like their windows and their base trim and so on and so forth. So the naily wood is really a very versatile, very nice product. Here's one of the boards that wasn't installed, and you can see that we've done a nice milling job to make it uniform thickness and some nice straight edges. And there is just a ton of character there.